Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to show you how your maintenance team can use Winshuttle tools to automate and improve your SAP plant maintenance operations. My name's Jeanette Mifsud. I'm one of the product marketing managers here at Winshuttle headquarters in the Seattle area. And I'm pleased to be joined by one of my colleagues, Tammy Lake, who's a solutions engineer in Houston. Hey Tammy, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Jeanette?
I'm great. So can you just take a moment to tell the audience a bit about your background and sort of how you got to Winshuttle?
Sure. So hello everyone. As Jeanette told you, I'm Tammy Lake, and I've been with Winshuttle for a little over a year and a half now. I am a former Winshuttle customer. I came from a manufacturing company where I was on a global IT team for 16 years. So part of my responsibilities while I was there included being global Winshuttle administrator and also our lead developer. So over the years I was involved in a lot of projects that touched every business unit in our company, including plant maintenance. So I worked with the business users and helped them create, maintain, and report on master as well as transactional data. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned since coming here is it doesn't matter what industry you're in. The more customers I talk to, I more and more realize we all face similar challenges when it comes to managing data, whether it be plant maintenance or any other data. And one of the favorite parts of my job has been learning what our customers and even our prospects are doing to solve the same issues that I not only face, but I see every day. So I noticed that some of the companies who are helping us with our PM research registered for the webinar today. So I see you, and I'm so happy you're here, and hopefully we won't let you down. So thank you for being there for us so far, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Cool. Thanks so much, Tammy. And I must apologize if I'm coughing and spluttering. That's what happens when you live in a damp maritime climate, but hopefully my voice will hold out. So just to help you understand kind of where our software tools fit in, we'd like to kind of use an analogy that you can probably relate to. So let's think of your SAP maintenance system like a big complex piece of equipment. Now, to run at peak performance, your machine really needs to be fueled with high quality data and maintained on a regular basis. But as I'm sure a lot of you know, the trouble is with doing that can take a lot of time and effort. It's a lot of work to get the data into SAP correctly and to keep that data up to date. But if you don't do that, you can run into a lot of problems. So kind of let's start with the data coming into your system. So if you don't have any kind of filters installed on the data coming in, your master and transactional data can end up being pretty poor quality. So there can be a ton of errors, omissions, and inconsistencies due to a lack of standards. So that means that planners and other skilled personnel in your department can waste a ton of time either looking for data that's not in SAP when they come to pull together a plan or to work on a work order, or they end up spending a ton of time just manually entering the data into SAP. You know, and another area that can be really slow and cumbersome is getting the day-to-day operational data that your team needs to make good decisions. And without the right tools, this can mean going through several SAP screens, and it can just take a really long time. So if you can combine that with, the poor data quality because you've got no filters, it's easy to see how the whole business of running your maintenance operations can become slow and inefficient. And this can have major downstream consequences for your business, including poor equipment performance, higher costs, and increased, business disruption and risk. But what if it was faster and easier to maintain this SAP machine? Well, this is where Winshuttle tools come in. So we give your team tools to proactively filter the data as it's coming into SAP and streamline the entire process of creating and updating both master data and work orders and notifications. So the result is data that's much more accurate, complete and standardized, and we make it fast and easy to create those operational reports your team needs to do their job. So with high quality data at their fingertips and more time to actually devote to their core job of managing maintenance instead of doing data management, your team can make better decisions and make an impact on the business, reducing costs and risk. So there's a lot to be said for getting good data into the system and making it easy to make sure that that data stays updated no matter what's happening with your plant or equipment. So now I'd like to ask a poll question and find out, what challenges does your team have with maintaining this big crazy SAP machine? So select any of those challenges that apply, and while you're doing that, I just wanted to let you know that we will be sending you after the broadcast an email with a link to the recording and a copy of the slides and also a transcript of the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the question panel of the GoToWebinar, and we'll have some time at the end to go through your questions. So let's see, Kristen, do we have any results to share? Okay, looks like we've got quite a mix of challenges going on here. Interesting. So the biggest one is the mass updates to master data. Cool. And yeah, getting quality, accurate and complete data from the field. We're not surprised to hear that one either, because as Tammy and I spoke to lots of different plants maintenance customers, that came up time and time again. So I think Tammy will show you a few different ways that you can solve some of those challenges. So thanks very much for sharing that with us. So I just wanted to mention who uses Winshuttle tools and what the different roles and responsibilities are. So as you'll see in the demos, Winshuttle tools are designed to empower your team and reduce dependence on a centralized IT organization. So people like SAP business or systems analysts can use Winshuttle tools to develop the solutions that get rolled out to the business users. And those business users might be, planners, supervisors, technicians, and engineers, or other people in the field. Now, if you have SAP power users on your team that are really familiar with your processes and data, they can also design solutions, because the tools are really, designed, as I mentioned, for the business team, and they're not IT-centric tools that require you to know, programming languages. So it's really designed to empower the maintenance team. Now, someone from IT can definitely be involved and oversee the usage of Winshuttle tools and be able to get a full audit report of what's been done by whom and when. So IT can definitely be involved. They can definitely have some control, but you're not dependent on IT to develop the solutions, and that puts a lot of power into the hands of the maintenance team. So as this quote from one of our customers at a UK-based power company shows, Winshuttle software is easy to use, and as I mentioned, that enables people without technical programming skills to develop the solutions that make a real impact. So let's kind of dive in and start looking at the tools. So we give you a flexible toolkit that can be used to streamline processes and improve data quality across the maintenance department. And let's kind of look at master data first. So we all know how important it is to get your master data right and keep it right, but sometimes the sheer mass and scale of that can be overwhelming. So Winshuttle tools can help you in all of these cases, whether you're migrating from a legacy system to SAP's plant maintenance, or whether you're doing, a mass add or a mass deletion of equipment and materials, depending on if you're acquiring or retiring plant and equipment. You could be doing the mass changes, as we mentioned in the poll. There's times where you need to make a change to a mass of master data records. And then there's just, the daily work that you need to do as new equipment and materials come online or things change in the business. So those are all the areas we can help. And here are just a few of the master data tasks and master data objects that our customers are automating and streamlining with Winshuttle today. And you can see on the right here the time saved versus manually entering the data into SAP. Now, these numbers don't even include the time that people save in not having to chase down missing information when they need it. Often, they have to look in manuals or on manufacturers' websites to get the information they need. And all of these time savings can really add up, as this analysis of some of our customers shows. So on average, they were able to save 565 days and process over 148,000 records. So, it's you can do impressive things when you start streamlining and automating some of these day-to-day processes. But it's not just about time savings. So Pharmascience, a Montreal-based pharmaceutical company, streamlined their notifications process with Winshuttle. And they transformed what used to be a paper-based process into an efficient forms and workflow solution. And Tammy will show you something very similar to this in a moment. So this freed up their maintenance team to focus on work that really impacted operations, which I'm sure you can all agree is way more satisfying than sitting there manually entering data into SAP. So as the Pharmascience example showed, you can use Winshuttle tools to also build custom fit solutions that streamline transactional tasks, including updates and mass updates and just the day-to-day work of transactions. And here are some of the common transactional tasks that customers automate with Winshuttle. And again, you can see the time savings versus manually entering the data into SAP. And as you'll see in the demos, your team can also build data filters or guardrails around this transactional data to improve quality. And it seems like a lot of you are having similar issues with data coming in from the field in a sort of unstandardized way, or maybe things aren't getting completed that you wish you had a more complete data set. So for example, you could require people to enter fault codes or repair codes when completing work orders and use standardized code sets to make sure that you're getting complete and standardized data. And this can really help your planners analyze that field data and spot patterns so they can adjust maintenance plans and improve overall equipment performance. So the last area where we can empower your team is with operational reporting. So with Winshuttle, your team can quickly build reports that can query data from multiple SAP tables and present that information in an Excel spreadsheet in a way that's really easy for people to digest. So you don't need to know Squivy or any other technical query language to build these reports. You just need to know the data you want to include, and then Winshuttle Query will help you locate the right tables and data elements and even guide you through the process of joining tables if necessary. You can see some examples here of the operational reports you can create in just a few moments with Winshuttle tools, but basically you can create any kind of operational report with Winshuttle Query, and Tammy's going to go through an example of one of those in just a moment here. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tammy, who's going to show you these demos, and take it away, Tammy.
So we're going to look at several different demos today. The first one is going to do with equipment maintenance. So we'll do a mass update, which was our #1 response from our survey, so this is good. And then we'll do something called round trip. And what that means is I can bring my equipment out of SAP using a query and into an Excel spreadsheet, for example, do some updates and then turn around and push it back into SAP. So like if you're updating warranty dates, or maybe you need to move it from one functional location to another, hundreds or thousands of records, you can do that just straight from Excel. So, and then I will show an example of one operational report. So I'm going to do the stock requirements list. And then we'll do a web-based form and workflow for the creation of notifications and work orders. So let's talk about our solution options first. So we've got, as you saw with Jeanette, we've got basically 2 different kinds of users. We have business developers and the user administrator. This can be the same person, or sometimes it's separate. In my case, I was both. So what happens is the business developer is the person who knows the T-code, who knows the data that goes into that T-code, and also knows the business process rules behind what's driving that data. So they use our tools to create the scripts and exchange with SAP. And as Jeanette said, you don't have to know code. I don't know code. I sort of know code, but I'm a lightweight. But you do not have to know code at all in here. So what we'll do is you can record a transaction. So if you've ever recorded like an Excel macro before, it's similar to that. It captures all of your keystrokes, captures everything that you touch. And then if you need to go back and add another field later, you don't have to start over. You can just go in and pick up the fields that you didn't touch. What it does is it hides every field that you did not touch gets hidden, and you can unhide those and then add them as needed later on. And then you can take those same scripts that we use in Excel and we can use them in a web form. And this is our enterprise software called Winshuttle Foundation. So we have a collection of products in there. And what we do is, if you've ever created a workflow, say for example in Visio, if our workflow uses very similar steps to a Visio, and then also if you've ever done any forms, for example in Access, or if you've done any SSRS reporting, or any third-party tools with forms and workflow, you're one up on it. So those are the types of people that already have the skills that you need to be a foundation developer. So what happens is they create these scripts and then they put them either in Excel or into a web form, and then they roll that out to the business users. The business users don't have to know any of the how to create the scripts or how to do any development at all. They're going to fill in either an Excel file or a web form and then submit that into SAP. Now, the user will not be able to push anything into SAP or pull anything out of SAP that they don't have access to, because we do use SAP's security. So you will be required to not only log into Winshuttle, you'll also log into SAP. I'll show you an example of that in just a second. So this last piece talks a little bit about that. So either a user administrator or a business developer is in charge of that user governance. So you can manage the licenses, you can manage who the users are, what the policies are, and you can share solutions centrally. So let's take a look at some demos. So this is an Excel workbook for equipment maintenance. And you'll notice we have a Winshuttle Run tab. So it's an Excel add-in. And you'll see here we've got where we've logged into Winshuttle, and I've also logged into SAP. And by the way, if you need to write to multiple SAP systems, so if you need to put this in quality or dev first, you can. Then you just log out of SAP and then log back onto SAP again to a different system. So that's cool if you want to move between systems. Also in here I've got several things I can do. I can query the equipment master. We're going to do that first, and I'll show you that in a second. I can do some mass updates. I've also got a form in here, and I've actually got a couple, and so this is creating equipment, and then I can do some mass updates. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to query what's in SAP now. So I'm going to run this, and at this point I'm working as a runner, so I'm not a developer. So the developers developed this for me, and this is what a runner needs to know to be able to run a query. It's going live into SAP and pulling the data out of SAP the way it is right now. So if you're used to using VW, there is no delay. You don't have to wait till tomorrow to make sure to get your data refreshed to look at it again. So this is downloading from SAP, and if you're familiar with the equipment screens, you know that there's multiple tabs in there, multiple views. So I've got information from my general tab, location, organization, and warranty tabs. Okay? So what's cool about this is I can now only show the user the fields that they need to update. And right now we're looking at equipment, but use your imagination. This could be equipment, this could be functional location, this could be customer, vendor, materials. So whatever you're involved in, you can set up the same type of spreadsheet for all of the above. In this particular example for today, we're looking at equipment. So we've got some things in here that are automatically built in. So for example, weight unit. Let's say I'm not sure which weight unit I want to use. I can click on one of the fields and under weight unit and click on lookup values. Oh, sorry, got to change to my change. That's my query. I've got to change over to change. Okay, so this is my IE02 where I'm actually going to do the change. So now I can do my lookup values. And what that's going to do is it's going to go, as you can see, it's popping up my SAP screen. It's going to go live into SAP. It's over here on my other screen and show me all of my options for units of measure. If you have a personal list in SAP, so if you have a shorter list, that's what will come up first, just like it would if you were in SAP. Also, here we go. Also, over here, I've got something if you look at this planner group, I'm going to do lookup values. So here, we've got a much bigger list of planner groups in SAP, but let's just say I want to clamp this down for this particular worksheet. I only want my users to be able to use one of these 10 planner groups. So it does have to be a valid SAP selection, but it can be a much shorter list. So think of this in terms of if you want to maybe restrict the company code that they look at or the plant that they look at, you can lock that down and they're only able to look at one of these. So let's just say I don't know, this is blank, I don't know what's in there. I'm going to do my lookup values and I'm going to choose, for example, I01, and it automatically puts it in there for me. I could also type that in manually, and I'm just going to put a mistake in here. I'm going to leave a few the same just so you can see what happens, and I'm going to just update some of these other ones. Okay. So now I'm moving all my planner groups from I00 to I01, so that's one thing I need to do. And just for grins, let me find another field over here and put another mistake in here. So now I've gone through and updated my data, and now I want to check it before it goes into SAP. So if you're used to using LSMW, you don't get a really good information on what the problem is, and sometimes you can't even run it personally. If you're a business user, you have to turn it over to your IT team. But with Winshuttle, as long as the user has access to that T code, they're able to run it straight here from Excel. So I'm going to do something called validate. Validate, again, is not writing to SAP. All we're doing at this point is we're seeing what would happen if I tried to put my things into SAP now. So apparently my all of my options there are not valid. This is an issue with the codes that I use. The I00 or I01 does not work for this. So now I'm going to fix that back, and it tells you how many errors you have. And I'm going to put that back to a valid selection. And do that validate again. Okay, I used the wrong, sorry about that, I used the wrong range. What happened there is, and this is telling me what's going on, is the pass-on warranty does not exist on the screen. So when I set up those pieces of equipment, I didn't use this pass-on warranty field whenever I captured my recording. So that's why it's giving me an error there, this field. So if you ever have a situation where, I'm kind of glad this happened, because if you ever have a situation where your pass-on warranty, or when you haven't selected a field but you have it in here, you have to make sure that you capture those fields. So what I would do now as a developer, and this is part of the testing, what I would do now as a developer is I would go back in and I would add that pass-on warranty back in. So let me clear out this log field.
Ah, the beauties of doing live software demos.
I know. Hey, I was adding some more bells and whistles this morning, so let's find some where there are some pass-on warranties. See, as you can see, these up here actually have X's, so I know they were done. Pass-on warranty was done on those. So let me just get rid, again, live demos, gotta love them. Just for demo, for time purposes, I'm going to delete these lines down here. And yeah, just watch me struggle here. So anyway, okay, so let's start over. So thank you, Jeanette. So pass-on warranty is definitely in these, and that's the good news. As you can see, oops, I've got to add that field in for those particular fields before I can do the update, which is, again, telling you what's wrong. So let's just try this one more time, put some errors in here, and then I'm going to make some changes. Again, I can do my lookup values if I'm not sure. Once again, I always do that. To change to my change, lookup values, I can either pick one there, or as I showed earlier, I can just do an I01 and copy and paste it. I do my validate, come back over here. This looks much better. So in other words, I've got some errors, and it's telling me here that my settings needs to be in the range of numbers that I have selected. So as I'm running through here, I can see all of the rest of these look good. and I've got 5 errors. So let's fix those errors now. Give it a chance to finish. Okay. And I'm putting these back to the way they were on purpose because I want to show you what happens when you don't change them. All right, now what's cool is let's say you have thousands of records and you have a handful of errors. Now I can just do validate only error rows. So now it's only going to look at those few rows that we had errors on, in this case 5. It's only going to look at those. And now I'm going to cross my fingers and hope they all say success. So far, so good. Yay. Okay, so that tells you line by line where your errors are. And then now I'm going to turn around and do a run. And this is no longer validating. This is actually going to go into SAP and make changes. And did you see my screen flash? I'll show you something in just a second. But this backup data over here, so what's going to happen is it's going to go into SAP, see everything that I'm touching right now, and bring out what that data is in SAP right now and create a backup data tab. So what that means is if I've made a mistake and I need to roll that back, I can put it back to the way it was prior to doing my updates. Also, that's good for your auditors. So if your auditors want to say what was it before you made the change, they can look at that tab and see what it was before, and then they look at this tab and see what it is after. And you'll notice up here as well, this tells you which SAP system that you were writing against and who did the records, the date, the time. And of course, this is right now, it's just talking about the ones that we just validated a few minutes ago. When this gets finished, this will change up here and it will tell me how many records were changed, the date, the time. And also, if your developer may require you to enter a run reason in case you need that for auditing purposes as well, or if your business processes calls for that. So we're almost finished, just a few more records. Another thing too I'll point out up here is you can do a specific row of a range of rows. So if I just wanted to do, for example, for testing purposes, if I wanted to do 6 through 12 or 12 through 20 or whatever, I could have put a range up here and just validated against those or run against those as well. Almost done. And you'll see here, now this has been updated. We wrote against WE6. We uploaded 27 records. Tells me who did it. And then over here, this is just raw data of what the data was. So I could actually rerun this again, copying and pasting using the same information and put it back the way it was. So now this was for updates. Imagine if you wanted to do a create, and imagine you could have a workbook that has multiple tabs in there, which I have 2 in this case. So I could do an Excel form, for example, to do an equipment create. So these are all of the same fields that are over here, except for I want my user just to do one at a time. So now I can say, okay, let's do an equipment create using the form, and then do a validation. And this is where that log field that was in our column A over here in equipment updates, it's going to be in here. So it's successful, meaning all of my data looks good here. When I get ready, I can click on run. If this equipment number was already created in SAP, it will tell me it was. If not, it'll tell me it created, and we created the equipment. Imagine you could have a workbook, again, with a bunch of different tabs and each one doing something else. So if you're a planner or if you're in charge of material equipment maintenance, you can have the form in here. You can have the to do one at a time. You can have the mass in here to do hundreds or thousands at a time. And you can always have that backup tab if you're doing changes. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend that backup tab every time you're doing changes. So let's look at a different Excel file. This has more to do with reporting. So this is an example of what are my stock requirements for this material number at this plant? And again, I could have this in the same exact workbook as the other one. For this one, it's not exactly applicable. It's not related, but you could have more equipment type reports in there if you wanted, and however you want to do it. But what we're doing now is we're actually using a BAPI. So if you have any BAPIs in SAP that you're using, and all a BAPI is something that IT has written specifically for you, and it usually has data across multiple T codes. So in here, I'm going to upload some information. So I'm saying for this material and this plant, what is my stock requirements, or what are my stock requirements? And you'll notice here, it gives me all of the header information for that material, and then over here on the right, all of the stock requirement information. So it makes that a lot easier than doing that in SAP. And then you could obviously you could have multiple tabs in here all doing different things.
So Tammy, on that one you mentioned BAPI, but could you be using Winshuttle query also to build this type of report? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, good point, Jeanette. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, this could have been a query. This particular one's using a BAPI, but it could be a query as well. So it's no different than what we did from the equipment perspective a while ago when we downloaded that current equipment information from SAP. You could use a query to download this as well, either way. And a lot of people are concerned about query and what if I download too many records? Is it going to bring our SAP system down? Winshuttle has something called query throttling. So what that means is it looks at your network traffic as you're downloading that data from SAP, and it makes sure that it controls the amount of information coming across. So if it needs to slow down and bring across less records and expand and contract as needed to keep your network traffic under control, and so that Winshuttle doesn't do that, that's what it does. And that's called adaptive query throttling. But you absolutely could use a query.
Yeah, and I think also, don't you have the ability in user governance to sort of set how many records and who can do it when, and so you have those controls over that too?
Yeah, exactly. You can set that in policies, and also you can set who's an advanced developer, basic developer, and what can an advanced developer do, what can a basic developer do. And so you have all kinds of control. You can also control who has access to what plant. So clamp that data down as far as you want using our Winshuttle function module that gets installed on the SAP server to give you some additional security. And last but not least, my favorite subject is our web forms and workflow. So in this particular example, we're going to do a PM notification creation, and then we're going to route it to a plant maintenance manager or supervisor. In this case, it's a manager. And then that manager is going to determine whether or not they want to create a work order from the notification. So a couple things I want to point out. You can automatically populate the user's name who's logged in, and then in this case we've got a lookup that goes out and looks up my cost center. And the cool thing about the way we've got this report designed is I'm only going to see the functional locations that are associated to my cost center. So instead of seeing the entire list of functional locations, I'm going to see a short list. Okay. And we've got some things in here that are called, for example, DataDriven Rules, and I'll show you some of those in a second, but let me show you something else first. So if I click on the first one, for example, notice here, this tells me what's in SAP right now. So if I went into SAP, it goes out and does a lookup and gives me information about this functional location, so I know what I'll be reporting against, okay? Something else I want to point out is for this particular functional location, we have these types of emergencies: rush, emergency, critical. But if I change it to a different type of functional location, like this one, for example, I can change this to be what % is this down, okay? And this is all user definable, user customizable, and yes, this is for PM notification, but imagine this as if you're doing equipment creation or material creation or something like that. you can write data-driven rules to change these drop-downs based on what the user chooses. You can also make things required. You can hide fields that aren't needed whenever they pick a specific selection. So all kinds of different things you can do. You can do data validation, did they match a pattern, and all kinds of things there. So going down the lines of the standardization that we were talking about. So when it comes to quality reporting, whenever you have work orders where you need to repair a pump or a piece of equipment or a functional location, being able to report on that is very important. It's such a pain. If you're having to manually today look through spreadsheets and look through text, you can build things in here. For example, failure type. You can use some standard, industry standard failure types, for example, mechanical. And again, this could be data driven, so depending on which one of these I choose. So for example, I choose mechanical, and these are my mechanical faults standards. So I'm just going to say leakage here. And you'll notice that little bubble that pops up, it says maximum 40 characters. So if I type over 40 characters, it will never go over. It will just stop. So we'll just, for grins, that's 40 characters. So let's see, let's say, please fix leak, for example. Okay. So this is going to help because now when you go to do your operational reporting, you can actually pull this information out and see exactly what was the reported fault, and that's going to help you, your quality department, whenever it comes time for them to say, okay, this is what was reported, but that really wasn't the root cause. Let's find the root cause. So instead of trying to look through all of this text and description, now you've got some standard codes and it's easier to report on. So at this point, I want to create a notification, but I want to make sure that all of my data is correct. And as you've noticed, the developer has made it not completely foolproof probably, but pretty foolproof because they're kind of limiting what they can select and what they can't. It really makes the user's life easier if they can have predefined values in there. But just in case, I want to do a validation. So this is similar to what I did in Excel. And this is going live out into SAP and letting me know if I have an error. And in this case, I don't, which is good. Now, when I turn this off, I can have this text change, create notification in SAP. Just say, okay, I'm ready to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create my notification. And it returns the fact that it created one, what the notification number was created, and you'll also notice that it hides the button now so that this user knows that this was created. If I need to attach a file, for example, I want to show a picture of the leak, I can attach a file. You can do more than one if you want. And then you can delete once you've added if you want as well. And then if I want to put some comments in, any comments, I can put some more details down here if I want. At this point, I can either route to manager or I can save. Let's say, oops, I forgot to take a picture and I want to save it and come back later, or maybe, oh, lunchtime, I'm going to finish this after lunch. I can save it and come back later, or I can do route to manager. And what's happening now is we're running a workflow. Let me show you what's going on. So when we first submit it, the originator is going to get an email that said it was submitted. Then we're going to send that to a manager for review. If the manager creates a work order, we're going to send an email to the user, and if not, the workflow is going to end. So I will also be notified as a manager that I have a task via email, and you can choose to let your manager either approve via email or not. In this case, probably not, because they need to go in and decide whether they want to interact with SAP. But if you have a case where maybe a manager just needs to see a picture of whatever the request is, so you can attach it as a PDF, you can attach it as a JPEG, and it will also attach the attachments to an email, then you can do email approval as well, and you don't have to interact with the form at all if that's what you choose. That's part of the business process. So I do have a task here as a manager. And you'll notice everything that the user put in is disabled, so the manager is not allowed to change anything because you don't want that original request to change. If you want to do that, then we need to set up something that will reject it back to the user and say you need to make the following changes and allow them to change or not. So at this point, I've got a choice. I can see that a notification was created, and I can choose whether I need to create a work order or not. If I say yes, I'm going to go back through the similar steps what I did earlier when I did the notification. And you'll notice, again, data-driven rules. So for yes, I'm going to display this section. For no, I'm going to display something else. Again, work order not created. Data validation, data rules. I can come in here, work order not needed or duplicate notification. I can come here and say, nope, this is duplicate. We don't need a work order already reported, for example. And if I wanted to open up one of the files, I certainly could from here and put in comments. And you'll notice down here, I can see what was done already. By the way, this whole section, no programming needed. There's something called process. There's a little, I'll just show you over here, just to give you an example of just how hard that is to add. Process control, I just drag this guy into the bottom section over here, and it creates that entire section for me. No programming needed there. So at this point, I'm finished. I don't need a work order in this particular example, and I do complete, and that completes my work form and workflow. Now, for time purposes, I only have it doing a couple of things, but in the real world, you could attach a task list there. You could create a plant maintenance schedule there. You can use your imagination, all the additional things and additional steps you could add on there. But for the demo, I just wanted to show a couple things that you can do to give you some ideas and let you think about some things you can do.
So Tammy, I have a question on that web form. That looks really, really useful. I can imagine how that could be used by anyone in the field or anyone on the factory floor or in an office building or whatever. So can those forms be used on mobile devices?
They can, yes, exactly. So what happens is the form gets automatically adjusted to the screen that you're using. So if you've got someone out on the floor, for example, that uses an iPad and they see a leak, they could take a picture with their iPad and they can open up that form on the network, enter the information, and attach that picture right away. Okay. And it will adjust. So the fields auto-adjust based on what type of device that you're on, whether it be a cell phone, an iPad, a laptop, whatever. Yes, excellent. Good question. So I did want to show you one last thing for those of you who get audited or need to do audits. All of this information gets written into a SharePoint list. So this is the one that we just did, please fix leak. And I can come in here and do this Winshuttle history. And you'll notice here, when I expand this, I can see who started it and who approved it. In the real world, of course, this would be more than one person. But imagine this for everything. Any type of request that you want to do. And by the way, I know we touched SAP in this one, but there were some fields that don't touch SAP. If you want to do an entire form that doesn't touch SAP, maybe you have some kind of business process and you want to limit what they're entering, go ahead and create a form and workflow that uses Winshuttle's Composer, which is the software that we use, as you can see here, to create the form. And you can get this workflow history for your auditors or even for KPIs. If you use Tableau or something like that and you use dashboards, we can certainly present the data for you in a SQL database, and you can certainly pull those into one of those Tableau or Power BI or anything like that. Whatever you use, you can get to that data. One thing else, I don't know if you noticed this, but we have different views. Remember I told you this is the originator view and this is the manager view. So everybody can see different things. So even if you have something, let's say you have a case where 100 fields need to be updated, but maybe I only need to see 5. So only show me 5 on the form. That's all I need to see. That's all I care about. But you could have as many views as you want in here for as many different people, for as many different reasons. So let me go back to our PowerPoint and do some wrap-up here. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so keep talking about data. So some things you can do, you can do, here's some things you can do. So searching for duplicates, if you want to see if something's created already, we could query to see if it's there already. That smart form logic, so this is the difference between Excel and web form. Yes, you can do that in the web form. Having web form and workflows opens up a whole new world, so you can do everything you can do in Excel and then some. And by the way, you can actually route Excel files using a workflow as well, not just a web form. That was briefly mentioned earlier, but I just want to stress that you can have a workflow with Excel as well. Field standardization, so we can do that in both, and we saw that. Role-based views, that's what I showed you in the form where different people see different things. Live SAP validation, you can do both, we saw that. Copy and like records, so I can query records using the form or the Excel, and then I can copy that and then change the relevant data to create a new record, for example. I can require fields even if they're not required in SAP. And by the way, if they are required in SAP, you don't have to do anything special to make them required. That's built in. But if your business process requires something that's not required in SAP, you can certainly make those fields required. And modify field drop-down values. We saw that in the Excel, and we also saw that on the form, where we can have a shorter list than what's in SAP. And of course, that SAP F4 lookup, we saw those as well in both places. So at a high level, hopefully you can see where we could save you time, we can improve that data quality, and if that data quality is better, it helps you make better decisions. And in this case, we're talking about plant maintenance. So if you're trying to figure out, do we need to retire this machine? Have we, can we switch some machines out? Do we need to buy a new one? How much is this actually costing us? You can do things like what materials haven't been issued to work orders? Did I forget, maybe do a review, a daily review. What did I forget to issue to those work orders? So you can do things like that, and that's going to help you make better decisions, which ultimately helps you continually improve operations. So Jeanette, back over to you for questions.
Hey, thanks, Tammy. That was great. So we had a few questions come in, and one of them that I'd like to highlight is somebody's migrating from another plant maintenance system. Where do they start with that process?
So I actually have been through this exact scenario, and what happens is, we have that Excel file that we saw, or Excel files. You can pull that data out of your existing system using hopefully an export tool, whatever they have access to, or maybe a SQL reporting or something like that, put into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can map a script to that existing spreadsheet, or you can create a new spreadsheet. And by the way, if you want to see how those spreadsheets are created and how those forms are created, if you want a developer demo, reach out to us. We'll be happy to show you how we record that stuff and get it ready for the users. But you get that data out of those legacy systems and you just put it in an Excel spreadsheet just like we saw. So where I ran the query, it's a little bit different. This is your existing data from the other system. Then now you can turn around and upload that same data into SAP, and you can have those rules and everything. So not only could you get the data migrated, you could also implement some rules and check the data before it goes into SAP the very first time.
Yeah, cool, thank you. So somebody asked a question about do these functions, is it supported under S4HANA, or is it just ECC?
No, we are certified on S4HANA. we're up to 1610 currently, and we are on our roadmap. We're currently working on some newer certifications in S4HANA. We actually have a customer who did their entire data migration into their brand new S4HANA system completely using Winshuttle, and by the way, they were quick to brag about they used no external consultants, no SAP consultants to do their data migration. They did it all internally using Winshuttle.
Wow.
So yes.
That's pretty amazing. So another question that came in, we're currently using BW for reporting and our data gets updated daily. How is Winshuttle different?
So remember when we first ran that query this morning, the very first demo that we saw, we are using SAP Security and we're going live into SAP. BW is a little bit different. If you're pulling data from BW, you're actually pulling in however often your BW gets refreshed. That's how often your data, how live, quote, your data is not. So sometimes you have to wait a day, especially, you know, if you want to make some changes now. So on that round trip, when I extract it, it's coming out live, so that's the big difference. But I can upload it back in, make my changes, and then guess what? I can run that query again, and I immediately see my changes. So that's a big difference between Winshuttle and BW. It's easier too, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
Cool, and I think I can answer this one. Somebody is asking, they have a lot of plants spread out over many regions, and is there a way to limit the plants a user can see? And I think you even mentioned this, Tammy, that yes, you can really limit what you want to see both in Excel, or what you want people to see both in Excel and web forms, right? So you can define what that plant list is, and you know, depending, you can also depending on their user ID, show us a set of plants. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Plant, it could be anything. Cost center, plant, profit center, functional location if you only want them to be able to do. And remember in the form, we were only able to see the functional locations associated with that particular cost center. So yes, absolutely, you can do that.
Okay, and then just one more question, and just want to remember, if we don't get to all of your questions, we will be sending you a whole list of questions and answers, and a link to all of the slides. So you'll have all of that later on today or early tomorrow. So one more question is, you mentioned developers, and people are sort of concerned about the level of skills that somebody would need for Winshuttle, and I know you sort of mentioned this a little bit, but it's really a no-code environment, and so maybe you want to sort of expand on that a little.
Yeah, so just again, if you are familiar with the T code and have access to the T code, of course, you have to have access to be able to record against it. You know the data that goes into the T code, and you know your business process. And a bonus point would be, are you comfortable writing formulas in Excel? Because you don't have to do that, but you certainly can put in some fancy formulas in our scripts as well. So those are the skills that we're looking for a studio developer, which is the desktop, what we saw in Excel. So the job titles you might be looking for are things like analysts or power users. That person that everybody goes to in your department. That's who you want to look for your developer for Studio. And then for Foundation, which is the form and workflow, as I mentioned earlier, if you've done some workflows using Visio, if you've done some SQL reporting services, if you've used Access where you've done forms and queries and reports, things like that, or any other third-party form and workflow solution, those are the types of skills that help with, they're not required, but they help. Now, could you write code in your form and workflow if you want to make our software do cartwheels? Then absolutely. I've seen people do it. JavaScript, you can put it in there if you want. You can also use, if anybody has cascading style sheets, you can use cascading style sheets there to kind of speed up your development as well. You can create a template. If your company wants your headers to always look a certain way, footers to always look a certain way, you certainly can do that as well. So those are the types of people and types of skills that we're looking for our foundation developers. Doesn't have to be someone from IT though.
Yeah, I do want to also mention that we have really great professional services and training capabilities. So it's not like we just give you the software and say have at it, you know. So you can get very detailed training on site or online, and you can leverage our great professional services team to come in and help you build some solutions and you know, impart like even more knowledge to your team. So you'll be very well supported if you choose to go down that route. So we're kind of running out of time here, so I just wanted to wrap up. So you know, I just wanted to mention that, you know, customers are seeing real results, and we know that your budgets are limited, right? You have to decide what tools you're going to spend your money on, you know, what equipment you're going to buy, who are you going to hire, how much overtime you can do. So we understand that you have a limited budget. So we really hope what we've shown you, and you know, that there's real value in this, both in the time savings and, you know, that increased data quality can really help you manage your operations more efficiently. You can use these tools that Tammy went through for all areas across your business, not just plant maintenance. So any master data and lots of transactional processes too can be streamlined and automated with Winshuttle. So yeah, we would love to carry on this conversation with you. There's lots of great information on winshuttle.com, but if you would like to see behind the scenes on how to develop some of these solutions and get a tailored demo for your company, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us at info@winshuttle.com or on one of those phone numbers, or contact your account team if you're an existing customer, and we'd love to show you more. So thank you so much. Thanks, Tammy, for being available today and all of the great demos, and we hope to see you on another webinar shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.